Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Don't Praise the Machine. Don't Praise the Machine is a light-hearted yet insightful podcast that explores the cultural trends, technology, and the quirks of modern life with humor and curiosity. That's Don't Praise the Machine, the podcast.
Wow.
That was
Love
that ChatGPT. So, because ChatGPT is connected to the internet now, and also, John, because our online presence grows stronger every day. ChatGPT now gives a pretty decent explanation of this podcast. So
Wow.
it gave quite a long paragraph. Actually, I said that's too long. Shorten it, and it said, "Don't Praise the Machine" is a lighthearted yet insightful podcast that explores the cultural trends, technology, and the quirks of modern life with humor and curiosity. And I just
I
thought,
think that's a great description.
I know I said thank you so much, Shah GCQuee. You're doing a real and then I said to it, Chat GPT, nobody will listen to my singing. Will you listen to me singing Lemonade by Internet Money? And it said, oh no, please don't do that. And I went, no, I'm going. And I went, Zanny Bar, Suicide Door, brand new bag. College girl, giving a head no ride. Rockstar life, so much money, I make you laugh. It's really out of key. I have that on the. I tried that before the show and it worked. I can't get the key now. And those are the two bits that I had written for the week. John, over to you.
Over to you. Okay, we're at 2 minutes and 28 seconds. Let's see what I can do here. Can I start by sorry, am I cutting you off?
No, if you
just wanted to start with this drink. So people, including your mother Marie, she's not a huge fan of the amount of drinking that I do whilst recording the podcast. I know
she's got liquophobia.
Yeah, and so people will see this strange bottle, which I got partly selected today because I was ordering some. First of all, it's a public holiday here, so I've had a pretty fun day, and it's a public holiday because it's Grand Final Eve. And
hang on, sorry, John, is that a new public holiday?
Yeah, and it's only in Victoria.
What?
So, for those who don't know, which will be many of you, AFL, Australian Rules Football, the Grand Final, the equivalent of the Super Bowl, is tomorrow, and it's always played in Melbourne because, I don't know, Melbourne, Victoria is the kind of traditional home of the sport. So, and there are still many more Victorian teams than interstate teams, although that balance is shifting over time. And tomorrow, controversially, for the first time since 2006, there are two non-Victorian teams going head-to-head.
Yes.
And I know you said to me during the week, Al, you said, I know that the Brisbane is now the home of the Lions, but to me, they'll always be the Fitzroy Lions. And I get it, and I understand that, but they are now the Brisbane Lions versus the Sydney Swans. So the story actually behind the holiday is worth telling. It's occurring to me now because I heard it a few years ago when I was working for the state government, and based on my experiences working for government, it's pretty plausible. Basically, there was some rumor that they were going to declare a public holiday for the grand final, which had been sort of something that was vaguely talked about for years, and governments had sort of said, "Nah, don't worry about that." And so one of the newspapers, I think it was probably the Herald Sun, called the office of the Premier, and someone relatively junior answered and spoke to them like a press, comms person, and was a bit off message. And they said, don't you think a grand final public holiday would be a good idea? And he said, yeah, actually, I think it'd be great. And then next minute, Herald Sun just printed like, "There's a new public holiday," and
wow,
and the government just kind of to save face was like, "Yeah, that's definitely what we meant to do. New public holiday, everyone." And it was quite controversial because then all the small businesses are like, well, you should have consulted us because now we've got to pay people extra and blah, 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 blah.
Just to interrupt, John, that's exactly how the Berlin Wall fell. That's the same story in that somebody was given a message to give at a press conference and they got it slightly wrong. And what happened was that there was a lot of tension towards the end of the 1980s surrounding the Iron Curtain, and there were certain movements rising up, and so the powers that be were frantically trying to come up with all schemes to placate their people. And so the East Germans were doing a few little things to allow like small amounts of travel, and this was being discussed. And they sent one of their guys out to do a press conference after they had said they were going to allow at last some of their citizens to do a tiny bit of travel, because for anyone who's not familiar with the ins and outs of the Cold War, East Germany and East Berlin was sealed off from the western side of the world, and basically from leaving Germany, more or less. And so to quell some of the unrest, they had said they had had a bit of a discussion behind closed doors, the East Germans, and they said, "Oh yeah, we'll tell them that we're going to let them travel at some point." And so they sent this guy out called Schabotsky, who was like a party guy, and he went out there and said, "Yes, in Germany," he said, "We're to hold this big press conference," and he said, "Yeah, we're going to actually start allowing Germans to do a little bit of traveling." And then one of the journalists just said, "Oh, when does this come into effect?" And he was meant to just say, "Oh, we'll tell you at a later date. That's not information that you are privy to yet as the press." And he just kind of shrugged and just went, shuffled some papers and went, "I think from now." And the press just went, "What?" And just reported, just was like, well, Walter Schabotsky just said that like East Germans can travel like now. And so it went out on the radio.
Wow.
And all the East Germans obviously were listening to Western radio, even though they weren't supposed to be able, they weren't supposed to, they had access to it. So the message just went out that East Germans, I know you've been sealed off for 40 years, but actually if you just go down to the checkpoints now with your passport, you can go through. So all of these like thousands and thousands of East Germans just rushed to the checkpoints, and the guards were just like, "What the fuck are you talking about? No one told us that anyone could." And there was, I'm sorry that this has turned into like an East German history style of the podcast, John. And then there was so many thousands of people at the checkpoints that it became incredibly tense. It was either shoot them to stop them from getting through, or allow them through. Bada bing, bada boom. End of the Cold War. And it's the same it reminds me of Grand Final public holiday in Melbourne.
Grand Final. And then Daniel Andrews, the Premier, came out and said, "Tear down this workday." And it became a public holiday. So,
ladies and gentlemen, I never thought I'd see it. They're dancing on the MCG.
Exactly. And so anyway, I had a relaxed day, and I ordered a bento box for lunch from a Japanese restaurant, and I specifically ordered this drink because I've had it before. Comes in a variety of colors. This one is known as Blue Hawaii.
Okay.
Looks like a kind of medicine bottle, but you'll see it's got this interesting indentation in the top and around here. And basically it comes like this. You peel off the plastic and this thing falls off. And so you pick it up and you see if I can do it. You push it out. So now you've got just this thing. People will see it.
It's like a nozzle or something.
Like a little nozzle. And you put it in the top and push it down. Hang on. And then this marble that was holding the bottle closed falls into that area. You can see it there.
Yeah.
And now you just drink it. So it's got a very elaborate sort of Japanesey opening system.
What's the purpose of the marble that's fallen into it there?
I don't really know, but the purpose in its kind of initial point, because it starts up here, is to act as like a cork.
Yeah, I get you.
And it must have been like an old way of opening bottles that they've just kept because it's kind of fun and gimmicky. So just thought it was a nice bit of marketing that they've got this very distinctive. Look at it; it's a weird shape.
Wow! And what does
got this little?
What does it taste like?
I mean, it's called Blue Hawaii, and that is how I describe the taste, like a kind of a kind of
Would you? That's
blue, like a kind of bubblegummy lemonade flavor.
right.
I think the marble might actually stop it because maybe you're supposed to pour it into a glass and the marble stops the liquid from coming out too quickly or something. But I don't know. Those Japanese, they think of everything. So I just thought that was an interesting little bit of marketing, and I know you like clever marketing.
I do.
And actually, on that note, one thing that we were talking about during the week, which I find myself having several conversations about, and it sort of surprises me because normally these things I'm not particularly observant of them. But I went out the other night with some friends, and we started the evening going to Five Guys
Burgers and Fries.
Five Guys Burgers and Fries, which is a famous American burger chain. And I'd never been before. I didn't even know they were in Australia. But then my friend was like, I've got a hankering for a burger. Shout out to Liz. I think she listens sometimes. And so Liz and Harley and I went to Five Guys, and I've since been doing a lot of talking and reading about Five Guys because I was just like impressed by their whole vibe. Yeah. And in some ways, I don't really understand my own fascination because they're just like a burger joint. But there's
red
a couple
and white
of things.
tiles. Now I've seen everything.
That's right. That's right. They've got red and white tiles. They had sacks of potatoes piled up in the corner. And I was like, this is so rustic, and you're really telling me that these are farm fresh potatoes. And then all their staff, unlike McDonald's where the kitchen is a sort of black box, you're not allowed back there.
Yeah.
And all you can see is a sort of glimpses of all these machines and grease traps and things. In Five Guys, it's all very open. You can see what everyone's doing. All the staff are kind of neatly dressed in the same Five Guys uniform. We got a booth, classic booth. But the thing that I was struck by, which was just like a tiny but clever thing, was when I came back with the fries. They give you, there's 3 sizes of fries. Pretty kind of, in a way, pretty kind of bare bones menu where you just order, one of maybe 6 types of burger. You can get like bacon and cheese, whatever. And then you get the main thing is all the sides, which come free. And that distracts you from the fact that you've paid quite a bit for the burger because you think, well, they're being generous with their fried onions and ketchup and whatever. But then the other thing that they do is when you order fries, no matter what size you order, you get it, in a paper cup, and it comes all the meals are served in these kind of unmarked brown paper bags. Like, it gives it this kind of unvarnished, burger joint vibe. And they always put like a ladle of fries extra in the bottom of the bag. So it's like they've kind of gone so generous with their serving of fries that there's just carelessly dumped a bunch of fries at the bottom of your bag. And I was like, oh wow, they've given me all these extra fries. And then Liz said, yeah, that's their whole thing. Like that's what they're kind of known for. And I thought that's such a weird thing to be like a distinct marketing strategy. But then I thought it's actually very clever because one of the pleasures of going to McDonald's is occasionally you get a few errant fries at the bottom of the bag, and it's like a little bonus snack. And that they've obviously just capitalized on that and used it as a sort of way of demonstrating that they're being, generous and abundant in their fries serving.
Yeah.
It's clever marketing. And then I mentioned this to you, and you put me on to a guy. I hope you'll be able to tell me his name because I've forgotten it right now.
Yes, Rory Sutherland.
That's the one. And he's like he's a marketing whiz. He spent many decades in marketing, and he's got quite a bit to say about Five Guys, and particularly about this thing, which I felt vindicated in my interest because he said it's an example of what he calls like replacing transactional capitalism with relational capitalism, where they sort of try to give you more than they need to, more than you've paid for, as a sort of gesture of, hey, like, we like you. This is all, this is
this isn't about the bottom line.
Exactly. We value your custom, and
we don't even
we'll go the extra mile for you.
Profits.
Exactly. Yeah. Just have some extra fries because you're a good guy. And he uses the comparison of these cookies that they give you, I think, at Doubletree hotels,
Yeah.
where like when you check in, you get like freshly baked cookies to
Yeah.
take to your room, which is also kind of a weird gimmick, but you can see how, you might be choosing between two hotels and you think, you're kind of imagining yourself checking in, and then you go, yeah, actually, I like I like this one. This one's just given me a check in, give them my credit card, and
Yeah.
in this hypothetical, I'm getting a mouthful of warm cookies. So
Yeah.
I'll do that. I'll go with that.
And it's cost the business maybe 50 cents to give you those cookies. In marketing, John, they refer to it as something that delights the consumer, the customer, the guest. So you want to sprinkle into any kind of experience, be it a service or a good. You want to sprinkle in little bits of delight, and even though they may seem insignificant, actually it does leave you coming away from the experience going, oh, they put a little bit more effort than the other people. I was with my parents in Bellagio, Lake Como last week, and both of the hotels / Airbnbs that we stayed at, both of the hosts had left bottles of wine free on the table, and you just go, oh wow, this is so kind of them. But I also have noticed in my time that the only places that ever do that, Airbnbs are the places. The Airbnbs are actually quite expensive. Like if I've ever gone to an Airbnb and it's dirt cheap, there's no fucking bottle of red wine for free. But as soon as it starts getting up to the hundreds or whatever, they go, oh, look, here's a couple of biscuits and a bottle of wine. Yeah. You go, oh, thank you so much, guys.
This is practically free. Yes, they've left me an Arnott's arrowroot biscuit and a bottle of wine.
I got a packet of Monte Carlos with my $2,000 a night Airbnb.
Exactly.
Thanks, guys.
That's right. Yeah. So what can we do as a podcast? I think that to put the proverbial marble in the bottle.
Well, I would say, John, our Patreons would say, God, am I getting delighted right now? I spend a couple of bucks and my testy satchel is full of delight at the end of the week because of all of the extra
DPTM
bonus.
After Dark.
DPTM After Dark. I dropped a bonus episode in the middle of the week that I just threw together on the member. Did you hear that, John? Are you on the members feed? Do you have the green one?
I don't think I did. I don't know if I was. Oh, let me have a look.
Don't even listen to your own podcast feed.
No, don't get high on my own supply.
It'd be great. I go, John, you don't even listen to your own and you go, yeah, I don't really like that show. Don't praise the machine.
I'm not a podcast guy.
I'm not really a podcast. I'm not really a podcast listener.
Yeah, that's right. For me, it's like, some sports, they're fun to play. I don't want to go and watch them.
If you have the members feed, John, in the green one, I did a little. Maybe I can just mention that now as well. The thing that I did a little bonus episode midweek that was only 12 minutes long, and I threw it together quite quickly. And the reason that I did is because my dear friend Jordan sent me a little bit of cutting edge AI technology in the week that I thought was mind-blowing enough to send an example of in one of the Patreon bonus midweek snippets. And just to explain to the audience what it was, John, my friend Jordan sent me this article from TechCrunch, I think, and it said something like, I just used Google's new one-click podcast AI and now I don't know what's real anymore. Great headline.
Yeah.
And long story short, I went into the tool and the tool said, hey, give us something to talk about and we'll make you a podcast about it using AI. And so I just fed it a transcript of last week's episode between me and John. So just literally a text file of the dialogue between me and John. And within, I would say, 5 seconds, it had given me a summary of the entire episode and what we talked about. And then to the right, there was this button that just said, create podcast. And so I clicked that button, and it specifically chose one part of the podcast. We spoke about a few things last week, but one of the things we spoke about was Australian artist Ben Lee and his potential early use of the audio pitch correction technology auto-tune. And this Google LM had decided, okay, we'll pick that bit. And then there's just a dialogue between a man and a woman talking about Ben Lee potentially using auto-tune.
Yeah.
And not only do the voices sound indistinguishably real, if I'd not told people it was AI, it'd be very unlikely that anybody would have guessed. But it throws in all these little natural language and conversational bits and pieces that really make it sound authentically real. So so they use the occasional filler words like, and they throw in a couple of ums and ahs, and they throw in slang, and then perhaps one of the most incredible things,
like right, you know,
of
this
course,
kind of,
of course, sure,
yeah,
all that kind of stuff. One of the most incredible things it did was, and you're just scratching your head, going, how could it know this? How could it know that that's the kind of thing that you would linger on and ask? So the host, I'll throw it in here, John, for all of our audience, and then we'll come back and talk about it. So this is just one moment from that particular one-click podcast. Oh, by the way, it generated this podcast within, I think, definitely less than 2 minutes. So I clicked generate podcast, and it went thinking. I didn't prompt it. I didn't say talk about anything. It went away and decided what it was going to talk about itself. Took 2 minutes, spat me out an 8-minute podcast between these two AI hosts talking about our podcast and what we discussed. And one of the more incredible and I think funny bits of it, I'll just paste here.
One little claim, and suddenly our whole understanding of music history gets flipped on its head.
Exactly. So buckle up, because things are about to get interesting.
Okay.
Our source for all this, Alexander Apricot Pepsi Holland.
Wait, say that again?
Alexander Apricot Pepsi Holland.
But it's amazing.
Right.
Okay.
He is one half of the comedy podcast Don't Praise the Machine. And Alexander, he is absolutely convinced that he has found hard evidence of auto-tune pre-share.
Bold claim?
Oh, it's a bold claim. And it all revolves around this song.
Okay.
Cigarettes Will Kill You.
Okay.
By, like, quintessential 90s Australian musician
Ben Lee. Yeah. I actually rediscovered him a couple years ago. There's a certain sound he had back then.
Yeah, and so the guy says, this is one of the theories of one of the hosts, comedian Alexander Holland, Alexander Apricot Pepsi. And she goes, hang on a second. Say that again. And he goes, Alexander Apricot Pepsi Holland. She goes, that's amazing. And then it continues. And you just go, how does it know that apricot Pepsi is a silly sounding thing that needs to, that she needs to react to? Like, that's mental. And then didn't it say something, John, as well? Like, it said Alexander bless his heart. It said that because it said something about me being obsessed with Ben Lee potentially being the first person to use noticeable auto-tune. And then one of the hosts goes, Alexander bless his heart. And I'm like, am I being fucking patronized by AI?
Yeah. By AI. That's right. Yeah. And then you sent me another one, which was a kind of example of that applied to my email newsletter. And which people, if you can't wait to read the next edition and you haven't subscribed yet, just go to dptm.org and sign up to it. But I wrote a newsletter about, I think in that case it was about satellites and space travel and, you know, the burgeoning technology of satellites and what they're capable of doing. And so they talked about that, but then they also made reference to the newsletter itself and said, you know, similar things like John Junior Boost Maloney, and he writes this newsletter and he's got this kind of cynical way of, you know, cynical humor. And I was like, fuck, how did you pick that up? It's not like I've used the words cynical humor or describe the podcast newsletter in any way. It's just somehow deduce that from the tone and the vocabulary of the newsletter, which is amazing. So yeah, it's scary. And look, we may not need to put the marble in the bottle, because we can just delegate the podcast entirely to AI avatars of ourselves that'll carry on,
It'll just
and
be
we'll
5 or 10% better than us.
yeah, that's right, exactly. So yeah, you might in due course you might find that subscribing to the Patreon is the only way that you can listen to the real John and Al, and otherwise you're getting an AI simulacrum.
That would be a great bonus. And I'm sure that will happen in the future. There'll be podcasts, and the public version will be AI avatars based on training of real people, and then you have to pay for the Patreon to actually get the real people that are slightly shitter than the trained.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
More filler words and missteps.
The thing that I said to you, John, which I think was something that I had not thought about when I heard that fake podcast, was that your brain, I think it was it felt like the first time that I was finding it very hard to remember that the thing that I was listening to was AI. And I've heard a lot of people talk about how we don't need to worry so much if we're making content ourselves, because as the AI revolution grows and there's more and more AI generated content out there, people will crave a quote unquote real, authentic human human experience or human media. So you and me, we do this podcast, we're real. People would choose us over something that's AI. And that was always something that helped me sleep at night. And then when I heard this thing this week of these two AIs going back and forth, I just was like, well, I'm forgetting that this isn't real. And so you know, am I really going to want something authentic if my brain isn't telling me all the time that the thing that I'm listening to isn't real? Because you need for your brain to be going all the time. Oh, this isn't real, so go find something real. Oh, this isn't real, so go and find something real. Whereas I was just sitting there and I just forgot, and I was like, oh shit. Like this
You're
is
just
I'm
listening
listening. I'm
to
just
the nice
listening
patter
like
of conversation.
Yeah.
I had the same experience, and I was like, yeah, they've got it. Because they had as you say, this kind of cadence of a lot of sort of, you know, studio podcasts, and this way of accenting things, and this kind of patter that you didn't even really, I'd not really thought about it as something you could kind of program, but it did it really well. And so you're just listening to it in this way that you kind of, you ease into just listening to it as a natural conversation. And sure, you could actively resist that and go, you know, this is fake. But unless you're doing that, you kind of, it doesn't jump out at you at all. So yeah, that sort of, you're right. That sort of, I mean, and it's obviously going super fast. I mean, there were a few examples where they're trying to do that maybe 12 months ago, and there was enough there, like weird intonation or occasional mispronunciations, to cue you that this was fake, and, you know, break you out of that easy mode of just hearing it as a natural conversation. But I don't think there's going to be any cues in the future. And you might, you know, you might still find that real humans make a slightly more nuanced product depending on what the inputs are. But I don't know how long that's going to last either.
It made me think a lot of how science fiction writers and future thinkers in the late part of the 19th century and an early part of the 20th century, how a lot of science fiction thinkers kind of predicted a lot of the technology that was to come. They started thinking about, okay, well, if we're able to make these automatons, if we create these machines, let's take that to its logical conclusion. And so you can watch things like even, you know, 2001: A Space Odyssey, and you can see people making video calls. And I'm sure anybody who's on social media, you'll occasionally see those posts of people who say things like, oh, look at this film from the 1950s that got this right. And they'll be pointing at something. And I think sometimes maybe we think that before any of this technology became available, we'd really thought things, we'd really already started playing with a lot of these ideas. But the one that nobody thought of, smart as we are, nobody predicted social media. There is nothing in any of that science fiction writing that says that we will develop technology where we all have our own accounts through which we want to express ourselves in these weird avatars. And then here are the knock-on effects of social media, because social media has had like arguably the greatest impact on society, you know, in the last fucking 10 years. And as far as the technology goes, and nobody predicted that. And so it makes me think, when I was listening to this podcast that sounded real, it really was this thing that made me go, man, smart as we are, and as much as everybody right now is trying to think in the future and go, oh, once the AIs are really smart, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. I was just sitting there going, fuck, there's so much that nobody's thought of that's going to happen.
Oh, well, yeah, because, I mean, as you say, everyone even 6 months ago was saying, oh, well, this just puts a real premium on, you know, coming off more human and being more authentic and sort of personal branding that's very real. And then you think, well, yeah, I don't know if that'll be that much of a distinguishing point, because pretty easy to just listen to this stuff that you know is fake and kind of go along with it. And you can sort of tell yourself, well, I don't know, human beings have had some kind of input in this or something. I don't know. There's mental tricks that you will
totally
use to just
it's based on someone real.
Fine. Exactly.
It's real to me because it's based on someone real. It's not just like a computer. It's like if John is John.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. And, you know, you're listening to these guys carry on and you think, well, I don't know. Like, I don't know Ira Glass. So what does it matter if there is no Ira Glass?
It's true. To be honest, there's a couple of characteristics of Ira that I would just like to turn the sliders down on, and maybe and maybe just click a few yes and no's on the Ira Glass personality box and get my own customized Ira. I'd like an Ira Glass that maybe isn't pretending that he's saying things off the cuff when he's clearly reading every single thing.
Yeah, it's true.
And today, well, who knows? Because, you know, maybe things are actually. I'm like, that's all written, Ira. Stop that now. That's all. Every single bit of that you've got in front of you.
Yeah. This week on our show, we choose a theme, bringing you different kinds of stories on a theme. This week on our show, that sort of affected boredom as well. I'd be like,
yeah, that's right.
Turn the flamboyance up. I want him to be like, this week on our show, you know, give me a bit of bubble gum.
Turn up the
razzle dazzle.
Turn up the FM razzle dazzle on Ira.
Turn down the coastal elite. Turn up the FM razzle dazzle.
This week on our show, we look at 3 different stories from 3 different people.
That's right. How is America treating its asylum seekers? Stay with us.
Do you want to hear something from me that you want to hear from me?
Yeah. Hard to refuse that offer.
This is another thing that I'm going to go a little bit deeper into in DPTM After Dark, because this is something what gets real dark, but I got to talk about it because if I look a little bit tired on the YouTube, that's because I've not been sleeping for the last week for all the P. Diddy TikToks that I have been watching.
You've gone into a deep hole.
I'm deep in a Diddy dugout because of Puff Daddy P. Diddy, Sean Puffy Priffy Combs has finally been arrested. I've been waiting for this for 35 years, and I was telling the authorities in the early 90s, hey, something ain't right with that guy, and they wouldn't listen to me. Finally, he's been indicted. Do we use the word indicted in Australian law, John? Is that an Americanism?
Not in the same way. Yeah, it's kind of an Americanism.
What does it mean? What does to be indicted means?
I don't actually really understand it, but I think in Australia you have indictable offences.
Okay.
And I guess you might compare the process of getting indicted as basically being deemed, like we have something called a committal, which basically
Yeah.
is a sort of mini trial, or like a mini partial trial, at the end of which the court says either there's enough here to go to trial, or says, more rarely, will say there's not enough here.
So in this case, they've said there's enough here for us to put you in jail awaiting trial, so that you don't flee the country and stuff like that. But man, oh man, this story has everything for Alexander Holland. It's music that goes back to the early 90s. It's hip hop, it's celebrity, it's comeuppance, it's weirdness, it's shame, it's potentially hidden homosexual behavior. It's like people fronting one way in front of the media for years, but behind closed doors they were this total other thing. It's like eyes wide shut. It's, you know, I wouldn't use the word Illuminati, but basically it does appear, at least on my TikToks, that there is this kind of weird, all those things that you think, oh, that's just conspiracy theory bullshit. Like there isn't really a section of society
Hollywood
that just
people are sickos and they're being protected, and you think that sounds a bit far-fetched.
They're connected to politicians, and that they're all connected to each other, and they all secretly fucking film each other so that nobody can talk bad about the other one. It's this kind of mutually agreed self-destruction that they all engage in. And now it seems like it's real, and and you just name a celebrity, or John, your boy Will Smith is completely implicated in a part of this.
Oh no,
this is the thing. You don't want to get me.
Not Jada Pinkett.
Jada Pinkett, she gets a couple of mentions as well for sure. Jaden, man, you just name Ashton Kutcher's in big trouble. It's a lot of celebrities that I don't have a lot of time for as well. So I like that about it. I like that people like Ashton Kutcher are implicated. And all I will say is, because I wouldn't go into this in After Dark, and I want to also make a public apology for anyone who's had to be in a conversation with me for the last week, because it's just been absolute verbal diarrhea. Anyone, even the poor Amazon man who just came to deliver me a pair of socks. Diddy diarrhea. The poor Amazon man just turned up with a little box of socks for the Berlin Marathon that I'll be running this weekend. He said, "Socks for you, sir." And I said, "Did you know that Usher was just handed to P. Diddy when he was a 13-year-old boy? What the hell's going on there?" He said, "Sorry, I'm not sure what you're talking about." I said, "Come in, look at the list. We got J-Lo. We got like Jay-Z. We got Rihanna."
Monitors with live feeds on them. You're like, come and learn.
I got the big whiteboard with all the red lines joining up all the various people. And you know what the weird thing was, is when that poor Amazon man got let into my house, there's already another 2 Amazon men that I've been keeping there for.
Just duct taped to chairs, watching the live feed.
So I can't wait. We can do a deep dive on After Dark.
You got so into the Diddy ditch that you started basically having your own House of Horrors, which was just like a Diddy, a horrific Diddy observation room.
It's because I'm such a music nerd as well. I know all of the names of a lot of the behind the scenes players. So so they'll mention music executives, and I'll just be familiar with them. And I was like, no, I knew there was fucking something up with him. Two people who have had very glowing Netflix documentaries made about their incredible music careers and how they've helped so many artists are now both getting implicated. My parents will know one of them, so I'm just going to do this. Shout out to Marie and Stephen, who recommended this documentary to me. There's a man named Clive Davis who's been in the music industry. He's 90 now, I think, and he had a Netflix documentary made about him, and it was all about his beautiful relationship with Whitney Houston and how he really helped her career and a bunch of other people. And now, if you're on the talks, oh my God, there's a lot of things being said about what Clive might have been up to and what Clive's relationship with P. Diddy allegedly may have been. Just deep craziness.
Wow. What about Pharrell? Davis. I
think Pharrell's name is on the list, I think, of people who went to the parties,
Yeah.
but I don't
Yeah.
know if I don't
Any
know.
Australians?
I don't know.
Keepers. Yeah.
I
What about
didn't-
Hugh Jackman? Is he on the list?
I think Hugh Jackman's on a lot of. I think Hugh Jackman's on a lot of lists.
On a few lists. Rebel Wilson.
Rebel Wilson at a P Diddy
At the Diddy
at
party.
a P Diddy
Hey guys.
freak off. I mean, one of the things I will. Hey guys, this is such a fucking sick party. This is a fucking sick party with Puff Daddy. Your favorite J-Lo's in a lot of trouble.
Great. Yeah,
Yeah.
I gotta say, I do want J-Lo to be cancelled. And as part of this,
She might go to prison.
wow. That's probably beyond my desires. But yeah, so I think one of the things that's come out, because the other thing that, these stories do is they just bring up a lot of general muckraking about celebrity worlds and celebrity bullshit. And so in J-Lo's case, my kind of learning about how she might have been implicated in Diddy's misdeeds led me to have a chat with you and then read an article about this issue that people have been kind of sporadically mentioning for years, where she just isn't singing on some of her own songs, and she basically uses session musicians' vocal tracks and pretends that it's her.
Yeah, for like a whole career, like all of her big hits, a lot of the choruses are completely sung by other people, and which is just crazy, because you remember like Milli Vanilli in the 1980s, they had their Grammys taken away from them for that exact thing, and now it's just like, oh no, but we don't do that anymore. It's just all about whatever we want it to be about. So go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I mean, at least when 90-year-old Frankie Valli performs in Las Vegas, he's performing to a recording of his own voice. That's probably got more integrity.
Have we talked about those videos? Because I keep sending them to you. I sent you a bunch of them, and I just said
we have.
I said, these are my favorite things on the internet. I just cannot stop. There's so many of them. So Frankie Valli was in a group called the Four Tops in what was it, like it must be 1960s, and maybe even the
50s a little bit.
Maybe in the 50s. He's a big star. He's had a musical written about his life, which is called, I took my mum and my sister to see it in London. Something Boys. What is that called? Frankie Valli musical.
Jersey Boys.
Jersey Boys. That's right. And Jersey Boys. Jersey Boys is a jukebox musical. It's presented as a documentary style format that dramatizes the formation of the success and breakup of the 1960s rock and roll group, the Four Seasons. Songs include Pink Girls Don't Cry. Also, Sherry.
It's all that kind of goopy, like syrupy music, isn't it, that he did?
Yeah. And why don't you tell the Don't Praisers what's been so fun? I had not thought about Frankie Valli probably since I took Mother Marie and Sister Isabel and friend Claire to see Jersey Boys at the West End of London, I reckon in the start of 2013, I reckon. And I hadn't really thought about him till then. And then all these videos started popping up on my social media in the last month. And I was like, what the fuck's going on here? John, what did those videos look like?
They looked basically like Frankie Valli, who's 90 years old, had been kidnapped and forced to perform. And because he's on stage and he's got a bunch of kind of enthusiastic session musicians behind him. And he's bless him, he's 90. So he can't move very well, and he can't even sort of emote very well in terms of his kind of singing face or his facial expressions generally. So he looks fairly sort of deadpan and exhausted, and is kind of mumbling the words to his songs and moving very slowly and creakily as anyone of that age would. And in the background, you can just hear, the voice of a very, very young Frankie Valli. This kind of, the kind of voice that not even I could have at age 41, let alone age 90. And and it just doesn't. I mean, I just think, how did this happen?
Yeah.
Like, does he owe the mob money or something? And they're just like, you have to do a bunch of stage shows to pay this off.
Yeah.
Has he like, somebody is maybe blackmailing him for something he did? Does he have a secret family? What's going on? Or is he just like, I love performing and I don't want to stop, even though I'm physically not
even
really
though
up to
I
the
really
task.
appear to be doing this under duress. He doesn't look like,
exactly.
because
Doesn't look like he's having a good time.
What makes it especially kind of funny and dark is that they push him out and they make him. He's the only one on stage that's wearing a glittery sequined green or gold jacket because they're highlighting him as the lead singer. And as you say, John, next to him are usually 4 other singers who are singing the backup vocals, and then there's a full band behind him. And he just literally comes out and he's doing those tiny little shuffly Biden steps to get out.
Yeah.
And then he stands there and he, with a blank face, he pulls the microphone up to his mouth, and then he just starts moving his mouth like a ventriloquist dummy, not even really making any effort to enunciate the words that he's meant to be singing. And he just has this completely dead expression on his face. And he's 90 and he's just going, like, it looks like if you were stood next to him, you'd be hearing ma 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 ma.
Yeah.
It's true. And then it's that, and then the contrast of the singers and dancers, like in this really camp musical way, going, "Come on, everybody, it's Frankie Valli, Sherry," and he's just going, and he's just going, "What's going on? Why does he have to do this?"
Yeah, get him off.
Get him off. What is it with your fucking country and elder abuse?
Exactly. He's and then I saw some piece of footage that somebody who was at one of the gigs had obviously, been waiting backstage, and out comes Frankie Valli again, like very slowly, sort of shuffling along, gives this kind of weak wave, and then walks off. And it reminds you of like the last few appearances of Pope John Paul II, where he was just on the papal balcony, like barely able to get out of bed. And it's just dark. But I was just reading about it. So it says Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons, this is Wikipedia, continued touring in 2018 and 19. Then they cancelled some shows during COVID, and then they rescheduled shows resuming in 2021 through to the end of 2024. And they've just extended the tour into 2025. And it says representatives for Valli responded to criticism of him touring at such an advanced stage and fears of elder abuse by assuring that Valli was, quote, doing just fine and super happy to be still performing. You wonder, like,
can we
hear
him
from
say
him?
that?
Yeah, that's right. Can we get him alone in a room and just ask him that question? That's not good. So, hopefully this is the final farewell tour at least, and then he's going to be allowed to rest and reap the rewards of his now almost century-long musical career.
I do want to say that that back in the 90s, me and John enjoyed a host of Burger King / Hungry Jack's commercials that featured a bit of work from the Jersey Boys. You will remember, John, you loved My Eyes Adore You as the camera sort of panned around a juicy Whopper with cheese. My eyes adored you. And then the voiceover would go, "Oh, get a look at that. Don't you want a big juicy fucking Whopper? You flame grilled juicy tomato sauce, mayonnaise. Don't you bloody want it? My eyes adored you." And then Can't Take My Eyes Off of You. Was that used? Yes. So
probably. I remember Hungry Eyes, but that's Eric Carmen.
We should do a whole podcast on all the music hits that were used with slow panning close-ups of Burger King burgers.
Glistening patties on the flame grill.
And that's Walking My Way Back to You, Who Loves You Stay. Frankie, come on the show. We'd love to hear.
Just want to make sure that everything's cool. It's all above board. and also understand why you're doing it.
John, do you want to tell everybody what you're up to now before we're recording this on Friday for anybody who wants a little bit of know-how on how the sausage is made. We typically record Thursdays these days. Today we've pushed it back to Friday. John, and now we're going to do our end of show. John and Al's, what's happening this weekend wrap up?
I just for the benefit of the viewers, I did a little trick before the show started. And
This is for the YouTube channel.
The YouTube.
Maybe I'll put it on the socials as well. I didn't know you could do this.
I just kind of worked out the comedic potential before today's episode, but if I just go like this, look, bye everyone, see you next week.
I love the gentle pneumatic motor sound as well.
So for those who are just listening, I've got one of these standing desks that is button operated, so you can kind of adjust the levels, and it goes up, really quite high.
Can you do it as high as it goes?
Yeah, I'll see how high it goes. Hang on. You can hear its lovely sound. Now it's 115. Fuck me. How high does this fucking thing go?
It's going to go through the ceiling.
This is for when Shaq O'Neal's got to do a bit of paperwork and it's got to go to 125.
That's to sign off.
That's as high as it goes.
New SKUs of the Shaq-a-roni pizza. He needs it up that high.
Exactly. Sign a few checks. Yeah, I've got one in at work at Melbourne Law School, and I played a joke on Jacinta the other day, where I sort of put a post in a group chat that was intended just for her to read and get freaked out about, where I said, I'm working alone in my office, and I went to the bathroom and I came back, and there's no one here. It's nighttime, and look at because you can see on the button panel, you can see the setting that you've got it on. So right now it's on 67.3, which is like how high the desk is. And I said, I got back to my desk and I felt like something was different. And then look at this. And I took a photo because I put the setting on 66.6. So it was like 666. And then I was like,
the devil's height.
There's some sort of, yeah, exactly. It's the devil's desk. And and she was like, what? And then I said, no, sorry, I made that up. I recommend them. They're good. I mean, I just use them for sitting, so they don't really, I don't really get the sit stand functionality, but they are good for a bit of visual comedy, a bit of sight gags that we've started to use.
That's going on the social media. I love that. I am running the Berlin Marathon on Sunday. There has been the show's getting so good that we don't have to fall back on Al's running themes anymore. That was kind of that was a crutch that I used to have. Is you'd say to me, oh, what have you got for the week? And I'd go, oh, I've been spending heaps of time doing research. And then it would get to my bit and I'd just go, doing training for a run that's coming up. And I'd just be like, and I'd go, sometimes when you run, you have to take energy gels, which help keep your energy levels up. I've got the research right in front of me here. Sometimes when you do running, you need to buy shoes that are for running. And yeah, so I
for one have always enjoyed the running content, but I didn't know that you were doing the marathon this weekend. That's great.
It's the 50th. Thank you. It's the 50th anniversary of the Berlin Marathon, so it's going to be big. In fact, as soon as we wrap up the recording, I have to pop down to Tempelhof Airfield where the expo is and pick up my bib, and there's always a really enjoyable, exciting vibe when you go to the expo, because all these people are there who are super excited because they're running the marathon, and there's tons of people that come from all over the world for this marathon. They make it their marathon of the year, and I'm so lucky. It is literally 4 tube stations from my house. So I will, after I finish talking to you, I will get on the train and I will just go 1, 2, 3, 4, get off, and then I just walk into the expo, grab my stuff, and just zip back home. And And really,
How
that's
fun.
why I do the marathon, is for convenience. I'm not really interested in much else, but I'm so
Yeah.
obsessed with convenience. Somebody said,
Convenience.
oh, the Berlin Marathon's one of the premier marathons in the world. And I went, I wasn't even running at the time. And I went, is it? They go, yeah. And I go, where's the expo? And they go, oh, it's at Tempelhof. And I was like, that's so close. It'd be such a waste.
May as well.
I may as well. And then I said, where's the starting line? And they said, oh, pretty much around Brandenburg Gate. And I was like, that's at the end of the U6. I wouldn't even have to change trains. And I was like, this just sounds... And they go, do you run?
Said,
and I go,
if I get
I could.
If I get the train to the end of the race, does it still count? They say, no, you got to run it.
I was like, okay, fine. So I just do it for convenience, really, because I want things. I want to be able to tell people. I just did it so I could tell people how easy it was for me to get to the expo, for me to get to the start line. I didn't even have to go play. I'll live near it. I kept saying. People go, people kept saying to me, "Oh, you're running the Berlin Marathon this week. You must be so excited." And I go, "I'll live near it. I'll live near it." I'll just get the train in. It's a couple of stops for me. They're great. That sounds great.
Great. Sweet fella.
So that's my. Maybe I should take some photos and put them on the. So I'm so bad.
Yeah,
with
that'd
personal.
be great.
We're bad with personal life. Instagram, but we did have a huge Instagram hit, which everybody should know about, because I think it's 350,000 views with our first Instagram hit, which is a silly little Justin Timberlake video that I made. Anyone who doesn't want to check it out now. I don't want to toot my own horn, but it's been shared 10,000 times. The globe has gone, Justin Timberlake, don't praise the machine, me mad. And
that's
guys,
huge. I thought it was very clever. Well done. And everyone, if you haven't seen it, it's a Moorish meme. Once you see it once, you want to watch it again. You want to share it.
John, thank you so much for being my co-host. I'm excited for you to go and have a dinner with your partner Jacinta's parents. What is before you see us out? Tell us, have they told you what meal will be served?
Yeah, we're going to have pizza, which is my favorite. And I said, 2 cent, I'm not going unless it's pizza. So she said, okay, let's talk to my mum.
What a great. You guys, great. I'm great. I've chosen you as the most basic bitch partner. I'm not going unless it's pizza.
Exactly. Is there going to be snacks? What kind of snacks? And she goes, God, you're a dead shit. Anyway, come along. So we'll go to that. Everyone in Melbourne is going to sleep barely at all tonight because we've all got grand final fever.
Yeah.
We can't wait to get up. And the thing that I'm looking forward to is the pre-show, which you'll be thrilled to know is by none other than everybody's favorite, Katy Perry, who is currently
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And she's currently in a bit of a she's in her I read an article today which said something like she's in her fail era, which is fairly rough, but she definitely is, unfortunately.
I feel like the AFL probably got her at a somewhat steep discount. I think she was probably on the discount shelf right now.
Yeah. A few years ago she would have been like, AFL, what the fuck even is that? I'm hanging out for, I might do a Super Bowl halftime show. I'm not doing that regional football nonsense, but now probably the biggest audience she could hope to have for the foreseeable future. But so I'm hoping that she's going to be there in all of her glory. I'm hoping to get a shot of Orlando Bloom sitting in the stands at the NTG cheering her on. I'm not sure that's going to happen, but that's what I'm hanging out for. The game I could take or leave, but the pre-show.
Are you watching it?
Oh, I probably will. Yeah.
So you haven't been. You're not going to a party or a barbecue or nothing.
No. Sometimes I've done that, but not this year. No plans.
Must be cool being in Melbourne when the grand final's on. Just the atmosphere in the city. More so when it's at least one Victorian team, I can imagine. But still, it's oh my god, it's that last Saturday in September. We want to remember. Exactly. There isn't any doubting. You'll be in there shouting.
That's right. So, ladies and gentlemen, I don't mind if you're a Fitzroy / Brisbane Lions supporter or a South Melbourne / Sydney Swans supporter. I wish
We got deep
I wish-
AFL / VFL history knowledge, John.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
It's true. It's true. I mean,
Two
you can't really
clubs
avoid
that
it in Melbourne.
used to be old Victorian clubs, now franchised out to interstate
Exactly.
franchises.
Yeah, that's how we comfort ourselves about the fact that there's two non-Victorian teams.
Yeah,
People are
right.
like, well, they used to be Victorian teams. Look, everyone, I wish you a happy grand final day, and come back next week for Al and I post-game wrap-up, classic post-game AFL, post-grand final episode of the podcast that we've been doing for several years now, where we go into a deep dive and look at the stats, we look at the favourite players, we unpack what happened in the first half and the second half, and who won and why. So
and John, I think...
Sorry, go on. Wait for that.
I was going to say, just before we go, I'm just going to see how many words. I'm just going to put the reverb on and see how many lyrics of this that I can remember, because I think if I can just get to the chorus of this, that will get everybody real G'd up for the grand final. Here we go. If I can maybe just put a little bit there, I think I'll see how much of this I can remember. Well, you work to earn a living, and on weekends comes the time. There are days when you could give it up. There are days when you could fly. But me, I like football. Well, there's a lot of things around. When you line them up together, the footy wins hands down. Jabba jow, jabba jow, jabba jow. Up there, Cazaly, in there and fight. Up there and at them, show 'em you might. Up there, Cazaly, don't let 'em in. Show us that you're out there to win.
Beautiful. Wow.
That's a little treat for everybody. It's Up There, Cazaly. It's a real AFL, VFL classic.
And don't forget to tune into the newsletter this week to find out all about Cazaly, who he was, how he got to be in that song.
Thank you so much, everybody, and we can't wait to see you next week.
The podcast.